Hey guys, welcome back to the next video. In this video, we are going to talk about the OSI model for your load balancer. We're going to compare two different OSI models over here of your LB version or layer 4 or layer 7. So these are the two different OSI models for your load balancer. So firstly, layer 4 is by default used to buy all your load balancers. So if you're using a network load balancer from AWS or your Azure load balancer, or you're using Google TCP UDP load balancer, which basically uses this kind of a layer 4 load balancer. Now, this is the load balancer which you will be giving as part of the default load balancer setting on your Kubernetes as well, where you will be entering the external load balancer. So it would be your layer 4. Now, this layer 4 is very much based upon this IP address and port numbers, and your route will be based upon the remote service IP address port number, where a request comes to the layer 4 load balancer and goes out to the IP address and port number. So we have architecture. I'll show you that. But just let me do the introduction first. Here, there is no content inspection. So as in like it will not inspect the content, like what content it is, what is the hierarchy, or what kind of a channels it needs to go to, nothing like that. It's not going to inspect any of it. Just going to see where this particular host is routed to, and then it just pretty much goes over there. So straightforward load balancing, you can call it as. Here in terms of the speed or the response time of this, it is generally faster because it has less overhead, because it doesn't inspect the content nor it has any kind of verifications or kind of it needs to do as part of the layers, and I'll come to that. It is simpler router decisions, so the routing decisions is so simple. And high performance, whenever you need a high performance, you can go for this. And it is based for TCP and UDP application, which is like, very much straightforward answer to your application requirements. Now, in terms of layer 7, let's just try to understand the difference. Now that you understood layer 4 is a very simple, straightforward and traditional load balancer, now let's talk about the layer 7 one. So layer 7 is not just based on IP address and port number, just like layer 4, but also it is based on content, URL, header and cookie as well. So you can configure a load balancer and understand the content, what it is, incoming content, what the content is all about. And then the layer 7 load balancer is intelligent enough. And I mean, of course, you need to configure that and create that intelligence from your end. But it is intelligent enough to understand the requirements as part of the URL and then route the request based on those requirements. So that is something which is very unique about layer 7 load balancer. Now, the next thing we're gonna talk about the speed of this. The speed is generally slower because it has more overhead. As in, like, if you have a lot of configuration or you have a lot of fine tuning in terms of your load balancer configuration, it's gonna be generally slower. But then if you're just gonna use it for your IP address and port number, basically one URL or one context-based routing, right? So in those scenarios, it will be faster as equal to layer 4. But then when you configure it more of multiple host names, multiple headers or cookie related items, then it may be slower because it needs to understand the header request. And then based on that header and reading the configuration file, it will be able to route the request. So it depends on the level of configuration, the slower or faster it's going to be. And it has more complex routing. That's what we spoke about. So this is going to be much simpler on the layer 4. And layer 7 is recommended for web applications or content-based routings. So you can actually recommend the layer 7. And in terms of implementation, you have AWS ALB, which is like a application load balancer, and then application gateway for Azure, and as well as like you have Nginx load balancer as well. So we have Nginx Ingress, which actually enables us to do the same thing. So you have multiple different types of load balancer, which we will see on the next video, multiple different types of ingress which supports layer 7 load balancing. And we will talk about more information about that on the next video. And yes, currently the load balancer which you see over here is layer 4. But if you want the layer 7, that's available through ingress. And we will be using, as of the hands-on session, we will be using the Nginx ingress load balancer. So let's just quickly understand about this architecture. Very simple architecture. Now browser talking to server using a layer 4. Now browser is sending a request to the server. Now layer 4 is pretty much transparent. It only tells whom to contact, who is the server, and what port number the service is running on. Only those two information will be there as part of this layer 4, and then it basically routes the request, and the server sends back the request to the browser. Browser sends back the request to the server, and server back to the browser. So simple and straightforward, isn't it? But in terms of browser, server, and layer 7 here, the browser communicates with the layer 7 load balancer, and then the load balancer responds with a separate query. So for example, it could be a redirection. So it will say like, I need to access this file, but layer 7 will say, oh no, this file, you need to go to this one. And then it goes back. And there is a lot of communication here within the browser and the layer 7 itself, because as I told you, there is a content inspection. So which means that it is basically based on your configuration. So this conversation can, it will have an increased conversation with layer 7 load balancer, or it may have a decreased conversation like this also when you make certain exceptions over there. So it depends completely on your application. And you can see the bouncing back within this layer 7 without even connecting with the server. Your load balancer is able to answer some critical questions which an administrator would like to be answered before coming to the server. So now when the request finally reaches the server, now the browser would have a clear clarity on what it needs to do. And this clarity is created by the layer 7 load balancer. So that's what I wanted to conclude this session with. So now in the next video, when we talk about ingress application load balancer, which has layer 7 feature, we will be talking about two different kinds to start with, and then we will talk about SSL termination as well, and that will help you to understand how to terminate SSL as part of your layer 7. Not just layer 4 works as in your SSL termination, but also can be done through layer 7 as well. Thank you again for watching this video. I'll see you on the next one.